COVID-19 has turned the education system on its axis, sending students home at unexpected times and turning fall returns into distance learning. The story being told is that students have been kept home to slow or stop the spread of the virus. But what hasn't been discussed is what it's like for students at home. How is this change affecting students' mental health, and how does this new virtual style of learning compare to the traditional? We'll discuss this and more in The Ugly Truth of Online Learning.
School for me was very busy. I had my schedule between going to track practices, going to meets, and then coming back to do rehearsals or plays, and then, of course, class. Right now, a regular school day for me is I wake up at around 7:30 and I go down the street and I work out with my friend and her mom. I eat breakfast, and if by that time I cook breakfast and I eat, and if by that time I still have some time, I'll get a nap in. Then I'll go to my 12 o'clock class right here, go to my 12 o'clock class. And then I have a 2 o'clock with Ms. Robinson. And then after that, I'm going to do some homework and eat, and then take care of whatever I have to do in the house, or if I have some errands I need to run, or take care of my dog, anything like that. And then I watch a movie, something on Netflix, because it seems so, it's just so blah. And then on top of the type of work that our professors are giving, it's not what we would get face-to-face. Face-to-face, you have a discussion about, whatever topic or subject y'all are talking about. Even, maybe if we have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you talk about it Monday, get an understanding of it Wednesday, get the assignment Friday or whatever, and it'd be due. But right now, it's, I have a chart here about everything. They're just like, okay, read this, do this discussion board, and you have a test on this day. No, we're not going to talk about it. Oh yeah, and you have an essay every single week. And it's not engaging, it's not entertaining, it's literally just read this, do the essay. And it's really overwhelming on the people who have like basically more than 15 credit hours on top of jobs. And yeah, just the new workload is ridiculous and it needs to change.
I'm a person that normally wants to work when I'm at home, but I can't do that if I'm on campus, because I know when I'm on campus, my entire purpose is to get my grades done, do the work. And then of course, I am on campus, I have friends on campus, I also have that like downtime. Thanksgiving break is normally when students get the chance to catch up and get prepared for finals. My finals are next week. There is no catching up. There is no preparing. There is no anything. You're gonna have to get through this, and it's gonna have to work. If you want to keep your GPA, if you want to come back in the next semester, you're just gonna have to get it together. And that is the most disrespectful thing that we can honestly go through, especially as seniors. We don't really have a redemption period now. You don't have a chance. If you want to graduate on time, if you mess up this semester, that's it. Whatever you get, as long as it's a passing grade, is what you're gonna have to go with. And they don't even consider how we are at home. They send out survey monkeys and questionnaires asking us about, oh, how is your life at home? How's your mental health at home? What do you do at home? But then y'all are also the ones telling us that you're taking attendance for a Zoom meeting. There's no reason that I should be in the Zoom call that apparently everybody was prepped for, coaching my professors on how to get things to work, how to record certain classes, how to put a virtual background in. I have professors that are giving me assignments that don't even teach in classes. And I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you're going to have us learn virtually, have us learn virtually. This whole idea of synchronous learning is possibly the stupidest thing I've ever heard come from my institution. I created my schedule back in May with the intentions of being in I-108 come August, when I didn't have any other responsibilities, when I didn't have to answer to anybody, when I was in the comforts of my own apartment. Another thing is that these institutions get in front of the media, get in front of everybody, and want to talk about how they're thinking about the students. The emails that we get have nothing to do with us when we actually get emails. Communication is gone. We used to get emails from SC State every doggone day. Used to have something from, I could wake up to an email saying university relations before I could wake up to an email about my actual class assignments. Like, the university relations department used to send out emails the way 14-year-old girls want their boyfriends to send them text messages in the morning. We used to hear from them all the time. We used to be to a point where you'd be like, all right, leave me alone, because I don't even care about this. This got nothing to do with me. But now that we're online, radio silence. Nothing. Honestly, it's like they didn't even care about us. They're telling everybody, oh, we want to stop the spread of COVID. We don't want to put our students at risk. That's what they're telling everybody else. But when we ask, it's, oh, well, faculty doesn't feel comfortable and staff doesn't feel comfortable, and there, we have a lot of older staff. But when we're presented things in the public, it's more like, oh, well, I mean, yeah, it's all a learning experience. We love the term learning experience, an adjustment period, unprecedented circumstances. It really hides the truth. Or the depths of the truth anyways. I mean, yeah, these are unprecedented times. It is an adjustment period, but nobody wants to tell the honest truth. How students feel like we're not learning anything anymore. We're just making deadlines. Everybody's trying to justify the difference between virtual learning and distance learning. But if everybody is distant and learning virtually, it is the same thing. I would understand if it was distance learning for a short period of time and eventually we would all be back on campus. But at this point, I've gone through my entire semester online. I have been taking online classes as if this was Education Connection. But I guess like my bottom line is something is gonna have to change if they're going to have us do this again. And I hope that somebody is like taking notes of this as they go along, because there are so many things that are not being handled well. So many things that are not being discussed with students, and we're just supposed to just roll with the punches. But nobody said that when you was rolling with nobody said that when we were rolling with those punches would be to the face. We all kind of thought it might have been, the shoulder, the arm. But like, we're getting beat up here. We are getting jumped from just about every direction. Because the education system is failing us yet again. I'm a firm believer that the education system has failed me since I stepped into kindergarten, but I mean, now, failing us. Some of my classmates' work environments don't want them trying to be in class while they're at work, which is, understandable, but it's also like, hey, what else are they supposed to do? They have to be in this mandatory class that they're taking roll for, and they also need to be here on the clock so they can, pay for their lives. So we're getting jumped by the education system, and we're getting jumped by the workforce. Some of my classmates have siblings that they take care of when they're at home. Now they're being jumped by the education system, by the workforce, and at home.
There is a difference between online learning and what we are seeing as a part of the pandemic, which is remote learning. Those are two separate and distinct forms of instructional delivery. So when people talk about online learning and virtual learning as a part of the pandemic, they're really not talking about the true sense of online learning. They're talking about emergency remote instruction. So online education is designed to be intentional. It is not designed to be something that you teach in an emergency situation. It is very structured. It is well planned. It has specific requirements and standards that should be met. And it is not intended for all students nor all faculty, because not every student is conducive to online instruction, just like every student is not conducive to other forms of learning. There are certain students that learn in better ways, and so online learning is not necessarily for every student, but it is very intentional, it's well designed, and it comes with certain standards that should be met. That is online education as it should be done, and it was originally intended. With the coronavirus pandemic, what many colleges and universities and K-12 schools transitioned to was what we call emergency remote learning. Now, some of that is being delivered online, yes. Some of it, in most cases, might be delivered in using other forms of instructional delivery, but in no way, shape, or form is what we are seeing as a part of the pandemic, for the most part, is considered the true sense of online learning. It was during the summer of 2020, we really provided a series of training workshops for faculty. In fact, we spent the entire summer providing training workshops. Starting in the month of May, we provided online instruction for faculty, and this week we provided these short courses. And when I would say short courses, I'm saying that faculty had up to 3 weeks to complete these courses at their own pace. And it was an introduction to remote learning. So that was the first course that they could have taken. It was online, it was self-paced, but they had to complete it within a certain number of weeks. The second course, what we were referring to as advanced, you might call it advanced remote instruction, where we covered topics relating to pedagogy. How do you engage students in a remote learning environment? What are some strategies to promote student-to-student interactivity so students don't feel necessarily that they're sort of behind a computer by themselves? You have to structure your student activities such that students engage with each other. How do you assess learning in a virtual or remote learning environment? What are some things that you need to be aware of as a faculty member to make sure that students are progressing in a course? So that class was also taught online in Blackboard to kind of put the faculty member in this, so they can feel what it's like to be a student. So it was taught in Blackboard, and again, that course was not self-paced. You had to complete it, and it was taught by an instructor over a 2-week period. So we offered these classes, both of them, the introduction and the advanced. They were offered several times throughout the summer, over and over again, so that faculty could take them, at their when it was convenient for them. So that was one series of 2 series of workshops. Then the third workshop was what we called our mini online course development lab. Normally, Miss Riley, what we do is we offer a multi-month workshop where faculty are taught how to actually build an online course. And it's taught in a series of what we call labs. But what that is short sessions where they come and they work with an instructional designer. And at the end of the course, as they attend these labs, maybe twice a month, they actually learn how to build a course. So at the end of the lab series, they should at least have built the first 3 lessons of their course. We kind of get them started. So if you're thinking about this as a 15-week class that you're going to teach online, we kind of get them started by building the first 3 weeks. And then they have enough to where they can finish the last 12 weeks. No, they were not mandatory as far as I'm concerned, certainly not for staff, but for faculty. Faculty certainly were encouraged by the provost as well as their department chairs to participate in training. And remember, the Center for Online and Distance Education have been sponsoring faculty workshops, since I was there, but certainly before I came there. So many faculty had already participated in these workshops and trainings. So there was no need for them to repeat it. But it was not, mandatory that you had to attend these workshops, as far as I'm aware. We have not made it a practice to follow up on our faculty after they complete training, say in a month or 2 or whatever, and say, hey, now that you've completed the training, are you, how is it going? One of the biggest challenges were that we had to basically shift our focus very quickly. We had to, for an example, with the workshops that I'm sharing, that I just described for you, those had to be developed over a period of a weekend. And normally it would take probably 2 to 3 months to develop a full workshop, but I vividly remember myself spending at least 2 weekends of my time developing at least 2 of those workshops. So that was a challenge, and I overcame that challenge by just simply saying, you know what, it's got to be done. I told my family I have to be in the office working over these next 2 weekends because I've got to get these workshops ready because they've got to be done by this summer. So that was the first. The other challenge was that while we had a lot of the handouts and materials, Ms. Riley, we already had these handouts packaged in other larger resource guides that we would give to students, that we would give to faculty. We had to break that apart because people don't have time to read entire manuals when they need to know how to, look, I need to know how to upload an assignment, or I need to know how to find my grades. They don't have time to be looking through a thick document. They need to get to that one piece. So we had to break those documents apart and break those manuals and those huge resource guides. We had to break them out into separate one-page PDF files. And so the challenge in that was, again, finding the time. And you know how we overcame that? We just had to say, you know what? We've got to put in the work, even if it's on the weekends, in order to make this happen. There are ways that faculty can engage students in a virtual learning environment. It takes practice. It takes, and there may be certain courses that require, students to have their video cameras on. I don't know. But we teach faculty the different methods of engagement in online learning when we have our workshops. And that is including things such as you can poll students by using the polling feature. You can have students, you can do surveys to students. You can have them working. You can you can put them in small groups, in breakout groups, even in Zoom or Blackboard Collaborate, and you can have them work in little small groups and then report back to class. You can have them make notations during the class. So there are ways in which you can keep students engaged, even in a virtual learning environment, other than by, forcing them to turn on a video camera. Because just by having students look at you, that's not engagement, in my opinion.
Used technology before. I've used Zoom. I'm familiar with Blackboard. I even have taught a class that was vetted to be officially online. But trying to get past what if, I tell faculty the wrong thing, or how do we get everybody ready? We have a pretty large department, and there are a lot of faculty. We spent all of summer trying to get ready, trying to get trained, But I think that one of the things I was the most worried about was the technology. Would students have the access that they needed, the computers, the Wi-Fi, the internet, the bandwidth, and would faculty have the technology, and would everybody be comfortable? So this was a very challenging time. And then we worked very carefully with the CODE, the Center for Online and Distance Education, to have faculty. I encouraged faculty, and many of them did. Quite a few of our faculty did attend this, but there was training specifically for, all right, let's get your class up and running so that it's ready for distance education. But that was a lot of work. It required a lot of extra work on the part of the faculty, and they weren't getting, at first, initially, they weren't getting paid for it. This was something they were doing on their own. It wasn't mandatory because in the summer, most faculty are 9 months employees, and so they don't get paid in the summer. Their salary, they don't get a salary in the summer. And if they're teaching summer school, they get paid just for that class, and that's an extra thing. So I couldn't really make it mandatory, you have to do this, because it was basically their volunteering. But as I said, I was so encouraged by how many faculty were like, I'm going to do this. We spent a lot of time talking about the students, and one of the things that we talked about was we can't assume that every student has access to stellar internet connection or has the bandwidth they need. And so a lot of faculty, I've noticed, were trying to understand that. I mean, one of the things I kept telling faculty is, no, we're not lowering the bar, but we have to understand that success for our students right now is going to look different than it does in normal times when we don't have this sort of, this pandemic, and now we're doing everything remote. The other thing that we learned is that, some of it we went in knowing, and some of it we learned. It's, there were things that some of our students didn't realize that this is how you use this particular technology. And so one of the big things I was trying to stress was we need to be understanding and patient with our students and with ourselves. And one of the things that we really emphasized is things are not going to go perfectly. They're just not. Things will sometimes go wrong, and what we have to do is figure out how to address that when it happens. And so I think that quite a few of the faculty stepped up to the game and understood that. I had early on quite a few faculty calling in a panic, or this didn't happen, or this student didn't do this, and we worked through it. And I think when I emphasized we need to be patient and understanding with ourselves, with each other, and with our students, and also, if we're understanding with the students and patient, I think we will find the same thing with us. because we as faculty will sometimes mess up too, because we're human and this is new. Even for those of us who teach online regularly, this whole situation is new. So we're going to mess up too, and we just all need to think of it as all of us being in this together. The problem is, since this is new to a lot of us on the faculty and administration side, the temptation is to think, I've got to do exactly what I would do normally, otherwise I'm not doing my job. And I think some faculty rather, it's not so much that the students need to get all this done. It's more, if I don't assign this, the students aren't learning. I'm not doing the same thing. And and then they think I'm taking it easy on myself, and I don't want to do that. And so I think that's, I really think that may be one of the issues, is trying to assign too many things instead of less is more. I think that the pandemic is hurting students in other ways, not just because they're having to adjust like we have to the remote, but I just think not being able to have activities on campus, not being able to socialize as much, even if you're living on campus. I just don't think that, I worry about our students because I know that that is just draining for them.
I guess the best advice that I would give would be to figure out how you learn. That's probably like the one thing that's taken me as far as it's gotten me, is that I figured out how I learned at a young age. I had no choice though. My mom's an English teacher. She's good in English and in social studies. My father's good at science and in math. I had to be a well-rounded student, but that is a conversation for another time because it is not what it sounds like. But I learned how I learned at a young age, which made learning easier. I was able to adjust in this period, but the value of my education did not adjust as well. So, figure out how you learn.
Be flexible. Flexibility doesn't mean that you're lowering the bar or lowering your expectations. It means that you need to find other ways to get that lesson across to students to help them succeed. That there might be certain skills that students need, but there's not only one way for that to be accomplished. And flexibility is important, and patience with yourself, with your students, with everyone is also important.
Well, we do have these group meetings that we're able to talk to our other students amongst, because whenever we're signing up for our classes, we like to ask each other, hey, has anybody had this professor? What are they like? So definitely before you make your schedule, if you run into this situation, ask around about your professor first, see how they are face to face, or if this is a teacher who has taught virtual classes before or online classes before, check them out, get the feel, because you do have teachers who are just unnecessarily difficult.
What I would say is, let's find a way that we can support each other through this and build on the things that worked real well through this pandemic, because there's some things that we discovered that really works well, and then let's make a commitment to improve those things that didn't go well, and that's to both groups. And I would say there's a third party, and that is leaders of distance education like myself. I would say to them, don't be discouraged by the negative views of distance learning that have emerged from this, because again, this is remote learning. This is not real distance learning. Don't be discouraged, but find ways to reach out to students, to faculty and staff, to see how we can improve where we are as we go into the future.